Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Lamb Wuyi Cliff Tea session. By the end of this session, you're going to know a lot more about Wuyi Mountain. You're going to know about brand and Cliff Tea. You will know a little bit more about location. For those of you who just got up, I sent a map this morning, and that map is of the central area. And I'll describe to you in a minute where lamb grows. So if you actually get that map up right now, and you know what, I'll give you a minute to get that map up. And in the meantime, I'll talk about shop news. And then from shop news, we're going to go to that map. So yesterday was an interesting day. It was a really interesting day. This young chap who I met last Friday came in with, I believe was probably his sister, and said, I don't quite know what I'm interested in. And then he gave kind of a description which was not very detailed. He wanted what he called a black tea, what we all call a red tea. And part of that, I said, well, what further flavor profile? Well, I just want, more like an original taste. And so, okay, that's fine. And do you want any hints of anything in the background? We went through that. So I got him one, got his sister one. Then we got to chatting because this guy said, okay, I want to buy some teas to take back home. Oh, you're not from here? No, I'm from Tucson. And his sister says, are there any famous shops in Tucson or around Tucson that you think he should go to? And of course, one came to mind instantly. However, I didn't say it at first because he then said, oh, well, there is one shop that I've gone to. And I don't know, I forget who owns it. And I said, yeah, Austin Hodges. I know exactly who owns that shop. And it is semi-famous. And if you listen to AI, and don't we all listen to AI? It's the most famous shop in the US. So let's talk about that shop for a minute because he was able to identify immediately why this shop is so different. And one is scope. And we've talked about this before. Their shop has good tea, but it doesn't have scope. And so that's a big difference. When you're in a shop like this, you get experiential scope, which leads you to understand teas in a better way. So that was interesting yesterday. And the gentleman ended up buying a number of teas and taking them back. So now let's go to the map. The map is the interior. It's a so-called Zhengyan, Zhengyan area of the Wuyi Mountains. Why does everybody talk about Zhengyan? Everybody who knows about the Wuyi Mountains knows that this is where the most famous teas from the Wuyi Mountains come from. So let's do some history here. No, let's not do some history. Let's first continue looking at that map because I want you to look to the eastern side. All right, so let's stop using eastern and western. Look to the far right, right in the middle of the map on the far right. And there's something called Wulong, Niulankeng. Now, let your eyes from there drift downwards towards you, and you'll see another Wulong. Ooh, two of them. Except, look at the characters for each of the places. Are they the same? And the answer is no. The first one that I identified on the right, eastern side, is really Wulong. The one below is Da Kung. So whoever translated this map made a mess from the translation. Whoever actually Romanized, they didn't translate anything. Whoever Romanized the map made a mistake there. So the Wulong Kung that we're going to talk about today is to the right, in the middle. Why are we going to talk about Wulong Kung? Well, you notice the name of today's tea is lamb. Many of you may believe that somehow, in a moment of protein deficiency or some sort of protein panic, the word lamb came out of my mouth, and that's why this tea was named that way. That would be false. I didn't name this tea. This tea came to me named lamb. And what it is a joke. And the joke is that the farmer who produces this tea is right on the border of, in quotes, beef, which is Wulong Kung. So if you, again, look at that Wulong Kung position, his farm is right on the border. You know, well, beef over there, lamb over here. That's where that name comes in. I have to admit, it didn't come from me. I just used something that I thought was hugely hilarious. All right, so that takes care of that. I said we're going to talk about brand recognition today. Why? Over the years, the history of tea in China, on and off, have included so-called 10 great teas. And Scarlet Robe invariably ends up on that list. Well, it's expensive. This is true, so that means there's a match between the expense and the famousness in this particular case. So the question then becomes, why aren't the other teas, particularly we have championship teas in here that you've tasted. By the way, we're going to talk about championship teas in a minute, that you've tasted before, which are every bit as good, if not, at the top of their game in that area. Why aren't these teas more famous? Why is it that when most customers and prospects walk in here and they say, I want a oolong? Okay, that's good. You've come to a good place. I have oolongs. I have 150 of them. Which one do you want? They don't know. And I said, well, do you want a Southern Oolong or do you want a Wuyi Mountain? Well, I don't know. I'm not clear about that. And yet, the Cliff teas in China and among tea aficionados are the most famous all over the world. And they're the progenitors of Wulong tea overall. Wulong started in this area. And this processing modality developed over the years from this area. So again, I ask you this, why isn't the brand recognition higher? Well, let's do a little analysis of the area. The area is 50 square kilometers. That's not a tiny area. Well, it is in comparison to the country. It's a small area. But that area is probably no smaller. In fact, probably maybe a little bit bigger than the Dragon Well area, for which you have brand recognition right away. What happened here? Why is there so little brand recognition here? Well, first off, you didn't have emperors visiting the Wuyi Mountains. Remote, hard to get to. That's the first thing. The second very important thing is you have some 1,500 people involved in the tea business who own farms in that area. That's good. What size are those farms? They're tiny, and they're not contiguous many times. And by the way, is the cliff tea phenomena growing out of that area? In other words, are the farmers going to that 50 square kilometer border and saying, hey, let's cut down some trees, let's grow some tea. Let's make some money. Answer is no. It's in a World Heritage Site, so there's rules, right? Can't cut down the trees in World Heritage Sites, not without permission, hard to get permission. That's the first thing. Secondly, where is the ideal soil conditions for growing? Right within that 50 square kilometer. And actually, the most ideal are in a 7.7 square kilometer area. So what's the soil like there? It's gravel with lava mixed into it, red sandstone and shale. In that area, you get more of the lava as part of the soil than anywhere else. So therefore, you get those really rock characteristics. So this gives you some starting sense. Every farmer, when they advertise, they're advertising their farm. Hey, all of you who have looked on the internet and thought, oh, let me buy some direct. You're dealing with small farmers. We have a customer, I should say, who entered a contest in the Wuyi Mountains. Turns out that the farmer's daughter spoke English, so she was able to enter this contest. And the contest was to write an essay on what makes Cliff Tea special. And the winner would get a trip to this farm. Well, turns out from the foreign part of the contest, only one person entered, and that was the person from this shop. They didn't end up getting a trip there, by the way. And they did get a chance to speak through the daughter to the farmer and learn a little bit about life there. And that's when she discovered, oh, it's a really small farm. It isn't a nationally sponsored contest. This was a small farm sponsored contest. And the qualities of the tea, once you leave that 7.7 square kilometer area, once you're in the greater 50 square kilometer area, the quality of the tea varies widely. You get out of the 7.7, you have nothing to make up for inadequate processing or not very good processing techniques. In the 7.7 square kilometer area, the soil is so good, even if you're a lousy farmer, it's going to be pretty good. And by the way, in that 7.7 square kilometer area, are there lousy farmers? Not really. They're in competition. They're looking across the fields. Hey, I wonder what he's doing. They're having, and it's traditional for them to try and learn from each other and try and get a leg up on producing. It's a matter of pride, local pride. So that's one of the reasons you don't have a strong brand presence. Scarlet Robe, because of the history of the bush and because allegedly the emperor acknowledged in the Tang dynasty or whatever dynasty, I think it was the Ming dynasty, acknowledged, oh yeah, this is really good stuff. And as such, this is specialty and we want this every year. But there are so many specialties up there. That's only one out of oodles of specialties. So what situation has changed in the last 25, 26 years to make the public in China suddenly aware, oh my gosh, we have this national treasure? So let me help you understand pre-2000. In the 1990s, the best of the Iron Goddess Light, the best of those teas, that's southern Fujian province. This is not Cliff tea, southern Fujian province. They went for about $120 a pound, the very best, top grade. The best of the Cliff teas at that time was 1/10 the price. Oh my God, don't we all wish we were born earlier and had known? Because we'd have stocked up. We'd have gotten our 50 years, supply. And then, our lives would have been just great because we had that Cliff tea. Did in 2000, all of a sudden, the farmers who were doing the Cliff tea, did they wake up one morning and say, you know what, we've been doing pretty good before, but now we're going to really rev up our production and do a lot better? The answer would be no. Here's what happened in 2001, which was the key element in all of a sudden exposing all of China to the greatness of Cliff tea. They developed a championship competition, 2001. And all the farmers who were interested would participate, and they talk about with each other, and they'd look, what are they doing? What are they producing? So this was a place to centralize the knowledge and see what everybody was doing. And in the beginning, everybody participated because, oh my God, I get a chance to become rich and famous. Because the winner of this would get something like $5,000 or something, US dollars. So that was a big number back then. And so everyone participated. So over the years, well, in the beginning, who were the judges? You had national judges, nationally certified judges. You had some locally certified judges. But what made this competition extremely special, which exists to this day? The organizers said, well, you know what? We've had national judges before. We've had local judges before. And yet we're still in this position where we're not very well known. You know what? Let's have a component of the judgment be provided by users, customers, people who were interested in rating. And so 20% of the score is by people who come in. It could be anybody. I could have gone at that time, written an opinion, checked the boxes, and mine becomes part of the thousands of people who went. And then that constitutes 20% of the score. The other 80% is still with the professionals, that is, professional tasters, as well as other growers. And that's how this contest came to pass. So what has happened to Cliff tea since that time? All of a sudden it became very popular. And the organizers of the contest, in conjunction with the government, said, hey, let's take the show on the road. Let's demonstrate these teas in various parts of China. All of a sudden, Cliff tea becomes a rage. And instead of 1/10 the price of Southern Fujian teas, it becomes something like 20, 30, 40 times the price of Southern Fujian teas. Because everybody realizes, oh my gosh, I've been drinking Southern Anshi teas. They're very good, but they don't have the variety and depth that the Wuyi teas. That's what they really said. And therefore, the explosion in the interest started in 2001 and has just continued year after year. They have this contest year after year, and we get contest winners in here. So you're going to ask me something. I'm going to help you understand it right away. You're going to say, is lamb one of the winners of a contest? It did not enter this year's tea, the tea you're going to have. It did not enter it. Why not? So as this contest developed, what happened historically is the public's opinion became stronger and stronger. It was still 20%, but it was routinely looking for those teas which were easier to understand. So that meant lighter oolongs, cliff teas, and the ones that had the complex roast were getting left further and further behind. So this was distressing, actually, because there's gimmicks sometimes in some of these teas when you're making them. And so some of the farmers, some of the very good farmers said, okay, I'm not going to enter my best tea. I'm going to enter the tea that I think will win this competition, but it's not what I think is my best tea. So we knew this. Bijou and I came to understand this and came to go to farms and say, yeah, did you win the championship? Well, we knew who won the championship. Yeah, we tasted those things, and in the years that it was really interesting, we get that. But we also go to other famous farmers and say, you know what? I hear you entered this competition, but is that your best tea? So remember last week we talked about owners looking for best tea rather than specific taste? That's what we were looking for. And we were dealing that way with the farmers. And that's how we ended up with lamb, because we recognized, yeah, this is in some regard a difficult tea, but it's a championship tea. And that's how we ended up with that here, because we understood over the years as we talked to farmers, not all the best stuff is getting out there. By the way, how much do they give to the organizers? They give them 20 pounds. So that's what's given. And the winners, so first place, second place, and third place, they don't return their tea. The others, those guys who did not win, they return their tea. So about 80 to 90% of the tea is returned. And then that small portion. And why do they retain that small portion? Well, obviously, because they're promoting this, they can do whatever they want. But think about what I said before. They're going from place to place to place in China and participating in campaigns to spread the word. Cliff tea is really good. By the way, does cliff tea need to be spread in terms of, yeah, it's really good? Not in China. Here, it needs to be spread, and thus we've done our share for that. But in China, the people who are tea aficionados, the people who know their tea, they really also know their cliff tea, because it's part of the fantastic set of teas. All the varietals, all the production modalities have fantastic teas. Now cliff tea is rightly taking its place as part of the pantheon of these fabulous teas. So that gives you some sense about why brand recognition is still a problem. It also gives you some sense of how they've thought to take care of that problem. Has it completely taken care of the problem? Well, I'll tell you, when you're selling tea at the top level for $5,000 to $10,000 a pound, yeah, you've taken care of the problem. But has it reached every farmer? No, but that's not the point. The point really is, in China, there is a strong understanding that, hey, cliff teas are really good. And now there's a beginning of an understanding that, you know what, I got to go down there. I can't just go to the store. I mean, yes, the teas that win the championship, they're known, but what about the teas from well-known producers who didn't put into the championship? How do you get access to those? In many cases, there's so little of it being produced, unless you go to that farm, you have no chance of getting it. So again, you ask yourself, what's different about this tea shop? We go to the farm. Oh, but more importantly, we know to ask, hey, what's the stuff you didn't enter into the contest, but you think is your best tea? That's what we ask for. And that's what we bring back as we encounter it. So I really wanted to start off this series. This is a 6-week series. So we'll do Paragon next week and we'll do 4 more after that. But I wanted to ground you in how we've gotten to this position. Let's see how grounded I am. Oh, I'm grounded to the point where I'm stopping just in time because now that you know, and Bijou asked me, she said, did you remember to say you have cilantro in this too? Because, I'll get everybody really excited. No, I didn't put that. But we're in for an exciting ride here. Yes.
Jonathan asks, if a champion tea maker gives 20 pounds to a competition, how much tea would they make of that variety overall, most likely? How much more do they have to sell, in other words, in general?
This is a great question. Thank you for that, Jonathan. He says, okay, you guys know that a championship tea, 20 pounds is going to be disappeared from the world. How much in general is left over? Typically, there will be somewhere in the range of 30 to 60 pounds left over. And that's it. And so when we grab stuff, I think I've told you about the year that I was an idiot because I was offered 17 pounds of a championship tea. I really liked it. I just, thought that, God, that is a lot of money. And so we got 10 pounds. And then on the way to the airport, I said to Bijou, I said, I think I made a mistake because we should just grab all of it. So we called the farmer. By that time, he only had 2 more pounds. We grabbed that. And generally speaking now, we're smarter because when we go and talk to farmers, how much do you have left? Oh, 30 pounds. I'll take it all. It's not quite as automatic as that, but if we like it a lot, so Dreamscape was an example where we liked it a lot, and so we grabbed a lot of that. So that's typically what's the farmer is doing. All right. Introduction is finished. Let's get to this tea. Let's have the tea master make an appearance. She'll brew first, and then we'll brew together and talk about this wonderful tea. All right, I'm moving to the other side. Okay, took me a long time to walk to the other side, but I'm here, and I am so delighted. Do you all like light purple? I love light purple as a color. And so with no further ado, let me bring forth the lightly purpled Tea Master Bijou.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, 早上好. Good morning. You do that. Yes. Okay. In China, we call yang yu, but I told you we need the sledge. Okay. So today, okay, John. So you can help me. This is my section.
Yeah. So this is a setup.
This flavor.
This is the set. Parts of this are the setup you should have. So a 16 or a 12-ounce pot and a cup are the minimum. This is a tea toy. And then we have 3 small pots, which are 3 of her favorite pots and a favorite rock that we have. All you really need, though, is teapot and a glass. And you need a timer. So, as usual, Tea master will heat up the cups. And wow, looks like she's heating up the pot too. This is good. Why is this important to do? Because as we use these pots, and as you use the pots, sometimes things get stuck in places because there's a sieve inside. Sometimes leaves get stuck. Well, the only way to get them out is to do this process, make sure that nothing is stuck in there. And in addition, remembering that cliff teas love high heat. That's the other reason that she heats the outside and the inside of the pot. Get the maximal heat. It's 200-degree water. This one is 4 minutes and 30 seconds. It's 7 grams. Tea master is putting the tea leaves into the Yixing clay pot. Shakes the leaves, heats them up, smells. Ooh, smell good? Smell good. Drawing 200-degree water, which is preheated in our water towers. Remember, there's a rhythm to all of this. So cliff tea rhythm is different than red tea rhythm because you're using different tools. It's different than green tea rhythm. You're using different tools. But there is a rhythm. Your drinking rhythm will be different with this. Why is that? How about temperature? 200-degree water. Are you able to take big sips, big gulps? And the answer is absolutely not. Too hot. It's really an inhalation at the beginning. Sufan Sancho. Yeah. So remembering that it's different, this will help you understand why you're going through a different experience. This will help you understand why you're looking for layers of flavor in this in a different way than you might be looking at it for a tea that's brewed at 170 or 175. So a complete different mindset, and you need to enter with that different mindset. Now, I sent you a video yesterday, and that video was to give you a sense of how rugged the landscape is. You may have noticed that there are trails through here, but this is steep. And it takes a lot of effort, and they carry the tea. First off, they don't have processing facilities within this World Heritage Site. They shut all those down in the 1980s. Everything except one is outside of the park area. So everything has to be carried out of the park area. And so you see trucks, they're pickup trucks really, going through back entrances into the park. And then all of a sudden you see people emerge from certain places, certain trails in the park, and they are on their back carrying these 40 or 50-pound baskets of tea, which they then put into the trucks. And then the trucks speed off to the processing facility because they're trying to get there as quickly as possible so that they can control as much as possible the processing. Because are the leaves bruised by the time they get to the shop, the processing facility? They absolutely are bruised because, first off, you ran down a trail for a mile or 2 miles or 3 miles. So everything is shaking, and you're in a truck. It's driving and shaking. So the leaves already, even before they're withered, have a preliminary shaking. And then when they get down there, they're withered. And they go through the normal process that we've talked about before, which is 7 or 8 or 9 basic steps, and then an additional 20 steps. The 20 additional steps are refinement steps. They have to do with roasting. The initial steps are withering, shaking, rolling, frying, and shaping. Yes. Oh, what a great question. Wow, this is a fabulous question. So the question is, what percentage of the plants, and so I assume the questioner meant today, what percentage of the plants today are native to the Wuyi Mountains? And the true answer, before I make one up, is I don't know an exact percentage. However, if you ask me what's my guess, the answer would be as follows. I would say probably about 70% are native to the Wuyi Mountains. Where do most of the others, not all of them, where do most of the other plants come from? They come from southern Fujian. So many of the southern Fujian varietals, which produced certain profiles in Anxi and Xiping and other places in South Fujian, were moved to the Wuyi Mountains, and they produce another flavor profile because the soil is different and the processing modality is different. All right, timer went off. That was a great question, by the way. Very great question. Timer went off. Tea master separating the tea or pouring the tea out. Completely gain all of it out so it doesn't keep brewing, so you can get a nice second steeping. And what do we have? Lo and behold, we have beauty in a glass. Look at that color. I wish you could smell through the camera, because if you could smell through, actually, some of you may be able to, because you may have the advanced equipment which allows the smell to come through the computer. This thing would absolutely blow you away. All right, we're going to enter the quality arena. And what are we looking for? We're looking for astringency, aftertaste, and energetics. And I'm also looking not to burn my tongue. So that means I'm going to do an inhalation of the first sip because it's 200 degrees. It's hot. I'm careful. Okay. Wow. There's so much going on. It's hard initially to focus on what I talked about, astringency, aftertaste, and then energetics. But as soon as I disciplined my mind, stop detecting all that flavor, I started to feel the astringency. It's strong. Oops, I'm not supposed to be telling you what it is. Oh, well, you are going to know it's strong right away. Is there an aftertaste? Absolutely. Yes.
What is of the red line on the map?
The significance of the red line on the map is that's a trail through that area. That's it. There's nothing more. That's a main trail because that goes by a very famous temple, Tianxin Yungle. And that is the most famous Buddhist temple. And the legend about Scarlet Robe revolves around monks from that temple. So, yeah, that's a tourist line that they take people through. It's a hideously difficult walk. And we've never actually taken people all the way up there because it takes a long time and a lot of effort, and you're going up a lot. All right. So I'm going to take a second inhalation. By the way, I already have energetics with this one. And also, by the way, hope you take good notes because the note taking is going to help you through this 6 weeks. And we start off today this way for a reason. And you'll detect that as we move through the following 5 weeks. I'm testing again. I'm really verifying what I thought. Yeah, I got a nice strong aftertaste. Energetics. Wow. And this is incredible taste. Your turn to brew. Set your timers for 4 minutes and 30 seconds if you're using, using a Yixing pot. If you're using one of the special pots, set it for 4 minutes only.
By humans.
Love this question. Thank you, Jonathan. So the question really revolves around the evolution of tea, especially insofar as it relates to human consumption. So remembering that the earliest evidences of tea plants are about 35 million years ago. And it's led to arguments. And the main argument has to do with something that Jonathan alluded to. Did tea that's in the Wuyi Mountains end up there via Yunnan? So in the old days, back when I used to know everything, see, you're unlucky now. Now I know nothing. But in the old days when I knew everything, I said, of course that's true. Now there's another theory prevalent. And the more I hear this other theory, the more I start to believe it might also have been true. And it's possible both things could happen at the same time. So the other theory is that a small leaf varietal, I should say, arose independently in Sichuan. There's some beautiful places in Sichuan where lots of plants seem to have originated. And it is possible, although I still don't have compelling proof, but I don't have compelling proof that it was a direct transfer from Yunnan either. So this is a complicated question that's become more complicated over the years, especially since the Sichuan theory came to be.
But are any of the creatures that are native to that land or living on the land right now, do they eat the tea leaves? Which creatures do?
That's a great question. So the question is, do any of the creatures native to the lands eat the tea leaves? Well, obviously bugs do. So that's one easy answer. What's more complicated are mammals. And while lots of monkeys are in areas where tea grows, and we believe that they snack on tea leaves, we can't say assertively what other animals. It's a really interesting question because there are other tree-dwelling animals as well that might have, much like pandas. There's the red panda, which actually goes into trees, and unclear about that answer because the spread of mammals has been driven southward over the centuries because it used to be quite wild in the south and quite a few. So you used to have, as far as people can tell, rhinoceroses and other larger animals very far north of where they are now. Right now, you still, as a habitat, have elephants in Yunnan. And occasionally they decide to travel north. It's really an amazing thing when they do because everything comes to a stop and everybody gets out of the way. The monkeys are spread out all over China from north to south. Not much beyond Hunan, I don't think. I'm not aware of monkey populations, but I'm aware of lots of monkey populations. So, Zhangjiajie has monkey population. Um, Other places in Hunan also have monkey populations. Canton province has tons of monkeys. Yunnan has tons of monkeys. So, yeah, that's a great question, and I kind of see where you're going with that because wouldn't they have helped spread the plants? And the answer is yes, absolutely. These trees are not thousands of years old. These trees are probably, let me think about this particular farm. They're probably between 75 and 300 years old. I'm not exactly sure what the exact number is, but they're not ancient trees. These are clearly not ancient trees. What happened in the Wuyi Mountains, which is different from some of the other places, is that there was a continual, as the yield declined for the plants, they would take them up and plant new ones. And that didn't happen in Yunnan because the those things became trees before people realized, oh, yeah, these are really good. And so they weren't harvesting them in that way. Okay, time is up. Okay, so you've separated the tea leaves out, and so you're going to enter the quality arena. What I remind everybody, and this is very important, is that this is a 200-degree steeping. So it is going to be plenty hot. So you take an inhalation to start out with, not a full sip. Otherwise, you will burn your tongue. The other thing to remember is that there are layers of flavor in this. So as you work through this, keep taking notes because it changes. Yeah.
Yes. Dry leaves in the bag had a hint of stewed. Resting in warmed pot, it turned into a hint of raisins with the wet leaves. And that also reminded her of lettuces. And the broth, a bit of caramel. Just a real cornucopia of, you say flavors, Jeremy, but you started with scent. So I'm going to say a cornucopia of scents.
That's great. So Jeremy starts us off in this exploration talking about the aromas. So hints of prune, dried prunes or stewed prunes opening. That's the dried leaves. As we get to the wet leaves in the pot, hints of raisins. And then moving forward, what was the last thing? Hint of, lettuces. There you go. Lettuces and caramels. So let me help you with that language. Love the language actually overall. And it's very clear to me what you mean. So zero problems with the language. What I would say about lettuces is that to me, and especially where you put it in that order, indicates a crispness of aroma, a crispness of flavor. Although you may actually mean something like butter lettuce, I catch where you're going with that. Normally, not the language we would use, but it makes sense in this context. It absolutely makes sense in this context. Great comment. And you ended up with caramel, which is absolutely strongly there. Hints of caramel.
Bag of the aromas, she got straw and something sweet. But then heated leaves yielded a fruit, persimmon, chocolate, loamy. Wet leaves were fruity and vegetal. Tea liquor has the same pleasant aroma. I can go back to the top.
Yeah,
Back at the top,
straw.
straw, just from the dry leaves, but then we get to a persimmon, chocolate, loam.
Dry leaves, hints of straw. As we get to wet leaves, persimmon. I like the persimmon because many persimmons cause a slight puckeriness of as you're tasting it. So there's an astringency and almost a tartness, which is suggested by that. Definite hints of chocolate and
Wet leaves were fruity
Oh.
and vegetal.
fruity and vegetal wet leaves. I love this close because even as I was going through the quality arena myself just now, one of the things that I noticed was that vegetal character. And I was surprised because if you had asked me pre-tasting, I wouldn't have said that because I'd forgotten. And this is why it's so important to take these notes because turns out while our memories are good up to a point, because this is so complex, it's hard to remember all the way through all the permutations. Yeah.
Says, I found the warm leaves to have notes of floral, hints of chocolate and malt. And then the steep leaves were more floral. Tea water had a bright honey caramel sweet scent with hints of orange.
Oh, I love this. Let's start at the end. The tea water, bright honey caramel, just a huge brightness at the end. At the very beginning, the dry leaves had, there you go, florality, hints of chocolate and malt. And by the way, you and I were completely on the same line with that florality with the dry leaves. And when I first smelled them heated, it was like, oh my God, this is going to be much more floral than I remember. Then it turns out, no, I remember correctly. It isn't have that florality, but it masks that because in the leaves it seems to have it. What was the in between stuff?
Got it. Scent from wet leaves had more florality.
Okay, scent from the wet leaves had more florality. And then by the time you get to the tea water, it's that honey crisp and bright. Great catch.
There's so much going on, and while it seemed thick and dense, even heavy, when I actually drink the tea, I find it's not. It's delightfully balanced. The density is balanced by the mineral.
Oh, love this comment. This is, thank you, Peter. The density and the minerality are in balance as he drinks this tea. And I love that you have juxtaposed those two things because sometimes people parse that and then don't remember to think about it as a whole. And so you've done that properly, particularly for this tea, because the minerality is obvious, and yet it's not too much. First part of your comment, if you'll remind me.
Go back up.
Okay.
Initial vapor and aroma rich. So much going on, and while it seemed thick, presumably from the aroma, even dense and heavy, then we get to the tea liquor and it's
Okay, great. So the aroma fools you because Peter notes the density, the strength. It just feels like it's going to overwhelm you. But then in the tea water itself,
Aggie says the tea liquor has strong minerality with the same bitterness as an 80 to 90% dark chocolate. Not unpleasant because I love.
I love this comment. So Aggie lands at 80 to 90% dark chocolate in terms of the bitterness, or in terms of that, both the bitterness and the lack of sweetness with this tea. And so it's not unpleasant at all. This is bitterness of a dark chocolate. So dark chocolate has that underlying hint of the honey sweetness that Rob talked about, but it's not overwhelming. And it is a total package. It's the balance of the sweetness with the chocolate, density and minerality, all humming at the same time.
Jeremy says, get some dryness out. Easy swallow. Forming and or spreading throughout, sort of the light of a shearling robe.
Scarlet Robe?
Scarlet robe.
Yes.
Yes. Autocorrect. Scarlet robe. Yeah.
Okay. So a warming, grounding, almost like being enveloped in a scarlet robe. It's this sense of that truly this grounding sense. And again, the
Now,
easy swallow. That's right. I love capturing that easy swallow. Yes, it comes in dry, but it is very easy to drink. For Kathy, minerality, warming to the core. It's refreshing and a building astringency. And that building astringency captured my attention right away. Even as quickly as the second sip into the quality arena, I noticed, ooh, this is going to have some astringency. Now, to Jeremy's point, it stopped once it got to a certain point and became easy to swallow. So you have all of these things going on together, and you're noticing different things as it cools down now. Yes.
tart cherry. So hints of tart cherry.
I like hints of tart cherry. So again, I think Aggie talked about persimmon, which has, again, that tartness, a sense of puckeriness. Tart cherries, same thing. And so I think all of you are sensing, yeah, there's stuff here, but not unpleasant.
Jeremy lets us know that she did mean a shearling robe like her slipper. So I guess a sense of being enveloped by warmth.
Oh, okay.
Says others have noted, I'm getting, it seems to bind it all together.
I love this remark. So Andy talks about the minerality, even as the flavors are changing, binding everything together. This is a fantastic comment because there is one thing that I'm noticing all the way through, and that is there is consistent minerality. And great catch on that, Andy.
Says, as I get to the end of the cup, I'm craving chocolate truffles.
Well, that's just it. What I was going to say is, you know what? I come in the door, and when I smell the Cliff teas, where's my truffles? And yes, I catch where you're going with that.
Imparted, like learning from a great teacher. It doesn't feel like it's being done to me, but I'm arriving, it's arriving to here. I'm arriving here from within.
I love this comment. So this is like interacting with a great teacher where it's not being stuffed into a person, that is the flavor and the knowledge of the tea, but it's kind of suffusing the person and opening their mind. Great comment, because you know, when this tea first came to the shop, I was wondering, and in the back of my mind, we knew that this was championship material, but I was thinking, who can I serve this to and who can I appreciate? And then, of course, I thought of all of you. And it's true, you are appreciating this. This is not a beginner's tea. So I warn you, as impressed as you are, if you have somebody who's never really done loose leaf before and you introduce them to this, you have about a 50% chance of scaring them away from tea forever. So develop into this one. This is a beautiful tea. We love this tea. And I think 26 years ago when we started, it would have been hard for us to appreciate it the way we do now. Why is it that I have so much fun on Saturday mornings? It's because I don't have to do any of the work. You all do the work, and you do such a good job in terms of evaluations. It's really a pleasure to do these great teas with all of you because you do appreciate them. And appreciation doesn't mean that you will end up with this as a tea that, oh, I want to drink this every morning. But it does mean that on the days you feel, I want something really special, you recognize this could be one of the choices. Cliff teas, let's see. So everybody knows, again, I love all my children. So I love all the teas. I really do. There is a special place in my heart, especially for some of these cliff teas, because in my mind, these are so unique in terms of experience. So you talk about not a chocolate truffle, but a regular truffle. That's a unique experience. And it doesn't mean you like it or want it at every meal, but there's sometimes when it's perfect. So it gets to perfection as a compliment. There are some times that these cliff teas get to that perfection. And so that's what I'm so excited to share with you today and on the next 5 weeks. So, what are we going to do next week? We've been out to the barnyard, we petted the sheep, talked to the lambs. What should we do next week? Maybe we need to go to the top of a mountain and visit with a paragon. Let's do that next week. What do you have to do this week? Well, you have to stay healthy. You know, lots of little bugs running around. Let's keep them out there. Let's keep healthy here. Keep up our healthy habits. I am so excited to be able to visit with you. Looking forward to next week. Have a great week now. Bye-bye.